Magic the Gathering.
Magic, 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 I'm so magic.
Gathering magic.
Spend a lot of money on cards.
Playing cool cards with my friends.
Play it all so magic.
We're all winners in the end.
First podcast of the year of 2025.
Yeah, it is.
We're here, and let's just jump right into it. So hello and welcome to Wild Dogs Podcast 2025, a show mostly inspired by our love for the game known as Magic the Gathering. I'm your host, Luke, and with me here today is our other co-host. I did it again, didn't I?
Leland. Hey, everybody.
I did that for our last episode, too.
What a way to start the year.
All right.
Keep it in.
I guess we're keeping it in. I guess I need to get good at our intro.
I just kind of let you go, too. Like, I noticed it, but, you know, it's all right.
Anyways, I'm your host, Leland. I almost did it just after we
Look,
just
you can
talked
be
about
Luke, man. It's cool.
Oh, my God.
We can share.
I'm your host, Leland, and with me here today is our other co-host, Luke.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you for stopping by and listening to us ramble about all things magic. Let's just jump right into some personal updates, the Wild Dogs updates. Luke, take her away.
Leland, it's really just a question. Do you have any personal New Year's resolutions?
This is a great question. Yeah, I've got a couple personal ones, which, we've discussed a little bit here and there. Start the year here, me, my wife, and my daughter, we've been taking walks to our public library.
Okay.
And I think part of that is actually kind of tied to the show today. I've been proxying a bunch of decks by printing them at our library. So
Yeah, let's go.
So it's cheap. They have an awesome printer. And so that's kind of been my excuse to have these walks to the library. But it's been really fun. Obviously, it's freezing here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's very cool.
But we bundle her up in her little stroller, and she's all warm and cozy, and typically just sleeps the whole way. But occasionally she'll wake up and she'll just be wide-eyed and like staring at me, and like you can tell she's kind of looking around. It's super cute. It's awesome.
I love it. Did you have like a little like snow getup? Like, did you have like a little like a onesie, but it's like pillow?
My dad actually got her a big like puffy one with, like, it's got like rabbit ears on it or something. It's adorable. So
I love that.
But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun taking around walks, and then just being more active, I think is my general resolution. And then also just I'm not buying as much whiskey this year. So
Dude, heck yeah.
That's kind of my other one. Just not having whiskey in the house, not that like it's a problem or anything, but I just think for with the theme of improving my health this year, just socially drinking, and like I'm cool with like having a beer at the bar with you and the guys or that type of thing. But trying to do the somewhat pseudo dry January thing.
Okay.
And see where it goes. So
do it.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I like those are good ones. Mine are not as good. Like I think I said last episode, but like I'm not eating sugar in the month of or in the year of 2025, except for the month of January or July, because that's my my wedding month. But also here's one too. I want to learn how to make a good steak.
Oh, that's right.
Like I want to learn how to make like an actual proper like put chef's hat, Chef Boyardee, like, just like doing the little thing where you're like mixing in the butter. Like I've already tried. I just go, and this is how I do it. I go to the grocery store and I buy whatever steak is on sale.
Smart.
And I'll like max it out. Here's a little thing for the listeners at home. Something I've learned is that steak is thought of as like this very expensive, like cut of meat and all this stuff. But typically I've found that there's a sale every day on a different like cut, not necessarily like filet mignon, but like you'd be surprised. I don't know. I get these like weird. Also, too, if listeners at home, if you guys have a Wild Fork by you, you got to go there. It's the best place.
It's so nice.
We
got so much good meat there.
It's all frozen, so you kind of have to prepare a little bit ahead of time. So like you won't be able to get your steak that day, but you could get it the next day.
There you go.
So that's my That's my my big life New Year's resolution, but a magic one that I have. I think that 2025 is going to be the year of the sliver. I'm not talking about in your finger, like a piece of wood in your finger. I'm talking about the creature in Magic the Gathering.
creature type
Yep.
in Magic the Gathering. Okay, what? Because I obviously we'll get to this maybe later.
Yeah, we'll talk later about it.
I printed off a Sliver pre-modern deck for you.
Yeah, you did.
What has drawn you into Slivers?
Well, I feel like everybody needs to have like a degenerate tribe in Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
So like some people like goblins, other people like Eldrazi.
Mm-hmm. I've got a zombie deck that
You got zombies.
I'm actually thinking of maybe taking apart because it's too degenerate.
Okay,
So-
all right, okay. Yeah, zombies, that's a pretty good one. Yeah, I mean, my other tribal is Worm, but that's honest, as we all know. It's
Worm.
Worm tribal is
love it.
yeah, Worm tribal. It's very honest. There's no tricks. There's no anything like that. Whereas slivers are 1,000% trick. No treat. It's all trick.
Mhm.
It's all just like weird shenanigans. It's a lot of like all slivers get flying and indestructible and hexproof. And you're like, why? These were all 1/1 creatures. Like these were all like 2-mana creatures. So big fan of slivers. Also, I just like their lore. They're kind of fun. They have like one arm. Like they're just fun.
Yeah, the one sliver I've ever had is Sliver Legion. Well, I've opened a bunch of like bulk slivers, but I guess the biggest sliver I've ever opened was the Sliver Legion when I had that Time Spiral Remastered box.
Yeah.
And I ended up, this will tell you how much, my interaction with slivers is I immediately sold this card.
Oh
Because it's like a $50 card. And the first thought was I'm going to Man Vault with this.
Yep. All sliver creatures get +1/+1 free. Oh, it's like exponential +1/+1.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Yeah.
That's a very poor design.
It's
That's broken and I want it.
Yeah, this card is kind of nuts. So this could be your 5-color commander deck.
Hey, there
for
you
a
go.
5-color night. Yeah, Sliver Legion is a wild card. The art is really trippy too.
Yeah.
It's kind of this like rainbow. It's like this amalgam of slivers all in one.
Oh, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Also, the sliver lore is really cool. They're kind of like the what's the name of the xenomorph from Aliens?
Okay.
Where like they just kind of
Uh-huh.
like show up on a planet and then they just kind of destroy everything and like take over. That's kind of what slivers are. And they can like adapt to any climate. So there's like fire slivers and like synthetic slivers that people tried to make. Like it's like they're basically like Mewtwo
Like you
from
too.
Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. My favorite sliver, because there's one sliver. It's this one, Cloud Shredder sliver.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It gives all sliver creatures flying and haste. Originally
good.
printed in Modern Horizons.
2-drop
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Boros.
Yeah, your favorite colors.
My
So
favorite color combo.
hey, this is the Luke card right here. Slivers and Boros.
Yeah. I like the sliver next to it that's like a little it's like a little mummy's
Oh yeah.
sliver.
This is one that came out in the new Sliver Precon
Oh, that's fun.
Commander Masters. Yeah, a bunch. I think that was the most recent. The most recent slivers were printed last year. Before that, it probably wasn't since Modern Horizons 1. So it's been like 5 years since we've seen a sliver.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So yeah, hopefully you'll get some more in 2025.
I hope so. And I will not buy any of them.
You will not buy
I will
any.
print them at the public library.
Yeah, I guess for me, my updates are I've got my first commander deck of the year is already done. It's on its way.
Oh, are you serious?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's kind of a special one.
What is it?
It's a sleeveless deck.
Okay.
I've seen this trend going around. Obviously, it's kind of trendy to just not sleeve your cards and just throw a rubber band around them, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
It's very hipster. It's very I
Yeah.
don't care.
yeah, which I'm
Very
kind
punk
of
rock.
I think it's kind of fun, right? Just to like actually shuffle with unsleeved cards. Like the feel of that just feels right.
Okay.
You know? Yeah, I just so happen to have this Yenit Cryptic Sovereign deck that I've been kind of brewing and like conceptualizing.
Okay.
Granted, it's a pretty straightforward build. So what Yenit is, it's a 3/5 Sphinx with Flying, Vigilance, and Menace for
Interesting.
5. So it's 2 white, blue, and a black
Okay.
for this 3/5 Sphinx with Flying, Vigilance, and Menace. But the key thing here is whenever she attacks, you reveal the top card of your library. And then you can cast that card without paying its mana cost if its mana value is odd. If you don't cast it, you
Okay.
get to draw a card. So I will show you the mana
Interesting.
curve of this deck.
So everything's like, yeah.
It is just straight up. Obviously, the 2 slot is the one even because I need to ramp and
Yeah, you
like
need some
do
of
a bunch of kind of the utility stuff on 2. Other than that, it's literally just there's 0 4 drops, 0 6 drops, 0 8 drops.
I
It
love
is
that.
all odd. So
That's
in theory,
incredible.
and there's a lot of like top deck manipulation.
Okay.
So the attack trigger will hopefully be guaranteed to hit something big, something in
Yeah.
the 7 drop or a 9 drop. And I wanted this deck initially. I was trying.
$30.
Initially, I wanted to build this for $15.
Okay.
That was like this was like a year ago. This was just sitting in my like projects folder on Moxfield, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I set it aside. I was like, I kind of lost interest. And then, we talked about in our last episode the concept of the 32, right?
Yeah.
Like building a deck for each color combination in Magic. And Esper, for whatever reason, just does not compute for me.
Yeah.
There are a lot of commanders that are powerful, like the new Zur, the old Zur, but none of them just like really resonated with me, or I felt inspired to like actually put together
Yeah.
in paper. And this, I remembered I had this on the back burner, and I was like, this could be my sleeveless deck, my first deck of the year, and also tick a box working towards the 32,
Yeah.
all in one. And so instead of 15, I increased it to 30, just because it was like there were some cards I couldn't cut, like Aminatu, the Fate Shifter, is like made for this deck. She is like perfect.
Yeah.
Her +1 is to draw a card and then put a card from your hand on top of your library for Yennet. You can -1 her to flicker something.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And I put some newer stuff in there. Like there's the new Satoru Umezawa from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. He's got a lot of text on there, Luke.
Yeah, that's
Don't
too
let that
much
freak you
text.
out. The most important text is at the very bottom. Each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu, 2, a blue, and a black. And why this is important is it turns all my 7 and 9 drops into 4 drops in case Yennet is on the battlefield. So I can attack with something small or with Yennet, and then I can ninjutsu in something from my hand onto the battlefield.
Okay.
So, neat little tech right there. I also have, where is he?
By the way, ninjutsu is one of those mechanics I actively avoid because I just don't understand it.
Well, I will demonstrate with
Okay.
this new Yennet deck once all the
Perfect.
cards are here. And then another new addition is Fibblethip, Lost on the Range from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Fibblethip with a cowboy hat.
Yep. Ward 2, so you know he's modern. You know,
You're right.
you know he's new.
But basically, and you'll like this, Luke, there are a lot of cards that allow me to look at the top card of my library.
I love that. It's my favorite mechanic in all of Magic.
I know. I knew you'd love this. So
I
I've
love that.
got that. There's another Verge Rangers, allows me to look at the top card. But then I can plot cards with Fibblethip. So if I move to attacks with Yennet, I don't like what's on top of my library, I can just plot it with Fibblethip before combat.
It's kind of fun.
Kind of cool. And then the newest card, the most recently printed card, is Shroud Stomper from Duskmourn.
Okay.
Have you seen this card before?
Nope.
It's basically like
so expensive.
it's like a budget version of Archon of Cruelty in some sense. So yeah, it's a 7 mana for 3, a white, a black, and a black. You get a 5/5 elemental with Death Touch, and then whenever it enters or attacks, each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life, and you draw a card.
Yeah, that is budget.
Budget Archon.
of Cruelty.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 9 cents. Because it is like
it's budget in
objectively
dollars.
worse.
Yeah.
Archon. But I was like, oh, this is perfect for my budget Yenit. So
Oh, perfect.
yeah, so this deck's gonna be really fun. And that's the other thing is like I had half these cards on hand,
Okay.
and then I ordered the rest through TCG for like $20, and here we are.
I love it.
So
With prices like that, you're losing money if you don't buy it.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's what I like to.
You're losing money if you don't get it.
That's how I convince myself to continually buy singles off a TCG
Yeah, there
player
you
every
go.
day. It's like, well, if I don't buy it now, it'll cost more later.
There you go.
You know,
That's sound economic advice, everybody, right there.
yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my biggest update. And then I did want a quick shout out MagicCon Chicago. Unfortunately, Luke will not be joining me,
I will not, guys.
but I will be there for my birthday, my literal birthday, February 22nd. I will be at MagicCon Chicago
Let's go.
with my dad, my brothers. I think our buddy Johnny, who makes the music for this show, is going to be there.
Yeah.
Our buddy Jacob might go. It'll be a good time. Very stoked. Obviously, last year we had a blast.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So, yeah, round 2 this year on my literal birthday. So,
And if you guys have never been, you should definitely go. It's very fun.
yeah, get your cards signed, play some Magic,
Sit in lines.
sit in lines. It's more fun than you
Pay
think.
$8 for a hot dog. For a Chicago style hot dog in McCormick Place.
Yeah, that was a unique experience.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a unique experience.
I do not regret it, everybody. So you
No.
need to go yourselves.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think that leads us to our food for thought cast question.
Which I thought was a very fun question,
Yeah.
by the way.
Last episode, at the end of each episode, I give us a question to reflect on and answer in the next episode. So last episode's question was, what is your favorite playtest card? And so I had to pick a couple. I couldn't stick with one. So I'll run through these real quick. My first one is Pokey, the Scallywag. He's just a brushwag pirate. Need I say more?
Brushwag. Okay.
Yeah, brushwag is a famous creature type. There are only like 2, maybe. Now.
Okay.
I'm actually going to look that up because there was literally just brushwag. Almighty brushwag is what I was thinking of. Yeah, so there's OG brushwag, Almighty brushwag. There's the new from OTJ, the Ornery Tumblewag, which is actually really good. And then Modern Horizons 3 included the Temperamental Oozewag, which I added into my Grumgully deck. So
That's awesome.
only a few brushwags, and Pokey is the leader of them in his little pirate ship. I like
love
to
that.
imagine it's Pokey and all these other brushwags hanging out. He cares about whenever you flip a coin, you can instead roll a d20. 1 through 10 is tails, 11 through 20 is heads. And if you were to roll a d20, you may instead flip a coin. Tails is 1 and heads is 20. Now, those abilities may seem kind of pointless. However, there are a lot of cards that care about specifically flipping a coin, and a lot of cards that care about specifically rolling a d20. And so with Pokey at the helm, you can build a deck with all the coin flip cards and all the dice roll cards and have them all trigger properly.
Oh, I love that.
So, I don't know. I think Pokey's
That's
kind of
actually
fun.
good.
Kind of fun. Could build kind of a funky little coin flip and dice roll deck, I guess.
But unfortunately, you can't play any of the other brushwags because they're all green. And this one's is it.
Maybe I guess he's just assumed the pirate life and he's abandoned the land, the green. So I guess in that sense it's a flavor win because he's left his old life on land behind and now he just travels the 7 seas.
I like it.
I can dig it.
I'm here for it.
My next one is Keeper of the Crown, which is kind of like there are a couple keeper.
Oh, that
There's
artwork
like
is beautiful.
Keeper of the what's it called? There's one other keeper of the Accord is one that I constantly think of. It's a classic commander card. Yeah, Keeper of the Crown is like, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's got this goofy little scribbled drawing of a bearded man holding up a crown.
Very beautiful.
It's the Keeper of the Crown.
Also, you have that L I've never seen before.
Yeah, so L can only be, so it's his casting cost is 2 and an L. And the L can only be paid with 1 mana from any legendary land or legendary source. It could not necessarily land, but it has to be from a
Interesting.
legendary source, which is kind of weird. And his effect is other legendary creatures you control get +1/+1 and have indestructible. It's kind of gnarly.
That is cool.
It's kind of gnarly. But he also has an adventure on him, which is cool, called Coronation of the Wilds. For 2 and a green, it's a sorcery. Target creature you control becomes a legendary noble in addition to its other types and gains tap, add 1 mana of any color, draw a card.
That's
cool.
actually really good.
Yeah, if you've got like a, I don't know, I'm just trying to think like a Savannah Lions,
Ooh.
you can, for 3, cast the Coronation to turn it into a legendary creature, make it a mana dork, draw a card, and then cast Keeper of the Crown to pump him up and give him indestructible and +1/+1. Turn your Savannah Lions into like the king of the lions, basically.
I love that.
It's just one little example of why I think this is kind of a fun little utility card. It's cool, like the art. And then my last one is just called Potatoes.
Straight to the point. It's a food token. Okay.
It's a 0 mana artifact food. Yeah, it's not a token, which is unique. There are a couple. There's like Ginger Brute. We've seen some, non-token permanents become food, but this is, I think, maybe the first, because this was printed in the original Unknown event, I think.
Okay.
Not exactly sure when.
Oh my
in
god.
2023. But yeah, it's a 0 mana food artifact. And then for 2 and tap, you can choose one. You can either boil it. It deals 1 damage to any target. Mash it to create 2 food tokens.
Okay.
Or stew it. Gain 3 life, draw a card.
I love that.
Boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew. The potato card. It's great.
That's awesome. And that was before the Lord of the Rings set came out.
Yeah, nice little
Before that.
sneaky loader reference there. But yeah, what were yours, Luke?
So I had 2. One was called Awoken Nephilim, which is a legendary creature, Nephilim, and it says, during deck construction, name a Nephilim card originally printed in Guild Pack. Awoken Nephilim has that card's color identity, and it's a copy of that card in all zones except also legendary. So I just like this because it was like during deck construction. Like I've never seen that in a card before. Like,
Are you familiar with the Nephilim?
I know them from the Bible, but not from like Magic the Gathering, I guess.
So this is actually a really cool kind of deep pull that you got here.
Oh, okay.
The Nephilim, why they're significant is they are the original 4-color cards from Guild Pact, and they're the reason why the 4-colored combinations have these names.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, Dune Brood is what you'd call black, red, green, white. Glint Eye is blue, black, red, green. Ink Treader is red, green, white, blue. Witch Maw is green, white, blue, black. And Your Tiller is white, blue, black, red.
That's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, kind of cool. I thought originally that's why I thought you picked this card. I was like, that's a cool, because I didn't see that. I missed that when I was looking at these. And I was like, oh, that's really cool that you can basically make one of these legendary as your commander.
Yeah.
And then run this like in a draft. This would be sick in a commander cube.
Yeah, I just like that it said like during deck construction. I was like, oh, that's kind of a fun like ability. But yeah, so I did that one, and then another one I did was called Barry's Land, which I just did because I thought it was funny that it was like a basic land that's of type cloud.
And you know what's funny is I'm pretty sure this is also another deep pull.
Okay.
Barry is an actual guy.
I'm assuming, yeah.
And he's the guy, I think his name is like Barry Reich. Well, let me look it up. Hold on. Here's Barry's Land. Barry Reich. He's the person who created Domain.
Okay.
And was one of the original designers with Richard Garfield. And hence why he has his own land now, because he invented Domain. And then Cloud adds to Domain, being a new basic land type.
That's awesome.
So.
Also, it got me thinking as well, where so we have that that space set in the future, and I was like, how are they going to do all the land types in space.
Mm,
I'm like, so we might actually get the introduction of new basic land types.
that would be crazy. Or it could be like
you can have those
instead
like
of
snow covered lands.
yeah. So not like an actual new type, but rather like it's a land type, but not a new basic type.
Yeah.
But like a new type of basic is,
Yes.
is the roundabout way
Yes,
of
yes.
saying that.
So,
That's
like,
really cool.
Snow
actually.
covered lands could be something else where it would be like like
starry.
yeah, like starry lands.
I like that a lot.
Or
Or
you
galactic.
Yeah.
Galactic mountain. No, it's got to be something like snappy, like a starry mountain.
I mean, like the
Starry
obvious like easy way to do it would be like Neptune would be like the islands. Mars would be like the
Mhm.
fire. Like you could do like stuff like that. That'd be kind of easiest.
Yeah, and we
Isn't
did
Venus green?
we did see that in Infinity. UNF T basic unique prints. Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
some vibes like this.
Yeah, so that'd be like an easy way to do it, but I kind of think it would be more. I think it would be more fun if we, had, like snow covered land equivalents. Like new space specific lands.
Yeah, I really, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'd like starry just works.
Yeah.
Starry mountain, starry plains, starry swamp. Like it just kind of fits.
Yeah.
I like that.
Hey, are we
like that.
predicting something? If this happens,
this is
do
our
we
new
get
prediction.
anything for like predicting the future? 'Cause
Full-
that'd be kind of cool.
A full play set of each of the starry lands. I think
I would be cool with that.
the unique, because obviously there's going to be like the fancy unique border, full fancy foil, a play set of each that we called it. I think that's only fair. So
You know what else I want?
Rosewater, send it our way.
Yeah, please. Yes, please. Okay, you know how there's in Marvel, there's like Cosmo the dog, it's like the like Russian cosmonaut dog that like
Yeah.
got lost in space, Cosmo. I want a wild dogs Cosmo. You know what I mean? I want like a wild dog. I want wild dogs in space.
We've got
Yeah, you killed
Comet.
Comet. Yeah, I want Comet, but I want like a secret lair version of Comet where it's our African wild dog.
Yeah. I think we can make that happen. I think it's
Also,
only
does
fair.
our wild dog have a name?
I don't know. I like to imagine it's Evelyn.
It's Evelyn. Okay.
I like to imagine it's Evelyn, my dog. But yeah, I don't know. We need maybe a name for our mascot.
Yeah, if any
Question mark?
listeners have an idea, let us know.
But yeah, on to the main topic of this episode, which was kind of inspired just by, at the end of last year, we kind of got into pre-modern a little bit, or rather I started printing off a bunch of pre-modern decks, and we recently got a chance to play with them, and it was really, really fun. And it got me thinking about kind of doing a general overview for players who might have been introduced to Magic through Commander, which is fine. I think it's obviously the most popular format right now. It's something we love. We love to play, but I think it's also important to play other formats as well. It makes you a more well-rounded player. It allows you to look at the game. If you're a Commander player, it enhances your ability to actually play the game of Magic the Gathering. I think the play patterns of Commander are so fundamentally different from nearly every other constructed format
Yeah.
that it's easy to lose sight of like the fundamentals of the game and some plays that should be inherent to a Magic the Gathering player that get lost in the mix of Commander, which, we just did a huge episode on Commander, specifically Commander deck construction, and we're obviously huge enthusiasts of Commander.
Yep.
But that being said, it's so important to play 60 card constructed formats. And so here we are. We're going to take a look at all sanctioned constructed formats, which are kind of broken down into like 6. And then we'll talk about a couple other more casual constructed formats that I think are worth looking into and playing. So
Yeah.
yeah, ultimately this is just a way of yeah, just kind of looking at what else Magic has to offer.
No, for sure. And like, kind of a question for you, just off the bat here is like, what's, we are big Commander players.
Mhm.
My guess is that a lot of our listeners are also Commander players. But like, what's the big appeal of playing a constructed or like a limited format versus Commander?
Right. And I think the biggest appeal is kind of what I expressed with just learning how to play the game better.
Okay.
Learning the fundamentals of Magic the Gathering. It's, like I said, it's hard to grasp some of these, I don't know, kind of what are staples in other formats, these plays in other formats that are common, and the pacing of the game, and how to a lot of the strategies in 1v1 are far more not complex necessarily. A lot of times they are, but Commander is very socially driven,
Yeah.
which I think is fine. The deck constructions themselves, while they can be complex as they are singleton, because they're singleton and they're inherently less focused, you don't get a lot of these incredibly explosive plays, or like the turn 1 or turn 2 kills you see in Legacy, the kind of how to play in the different phases of the game, right? Like aggro, mid-range, playing control. You don't get a full grasp of those play styles playing with a Commander deck.
Yeah.
So I think the largest appeal to playing 60 card is to experience Magic at these different levels, while also, like I said, grasping the fundamentals of the game in a way that allow you to become just generally a better player. And I think ultimately will allow you to enjoy Commander better, because you'll see a card like, I'm just looking at my desk. You'll see a card like Counterspell, right?
I know that card.
A lot of people know this card. A lot of people hate this
A
card.
lot of people hate it. Yeah.
Blue, instant counter target spell. This card is played in almost every format, right?
Yeah.
Understanding how this fits into a deck is far more complex in 60 card than in Commander, where if you're running blue, yeah, I'll just throw a counter spell in there.
That's what I do.
You learn by playing 60 card, you learn why you play counterspell. In Commander, you just play counterspell, right?
Yeah.
You just have it because you know it's a good card, and it prevents your opponent from taking a game action more than often against you specifically in a Commander pod. In 60 card construction, it's just you and your opponent, 1v1. You need to know when the optimal time to cast your counterspell is, right?
Yeah.
And you also need, like, in each format, which counterspells to run. And often in your sideboard, you'll have like a Hydroblast, which is 1 blue, counter target red spell. Well, you bring that in when you're playing a mono red deck, So
Okay.
there are all these like situational things that allow you just to, like, when you look at a counter spell, you're no longer just thinking, yeah, it's a good card that protects me in the game of Commander. You look at this card and you're thinking situationally about, when this is in your hand, what am I countering and why?
Okay.
So I think basically ultimately what I'm trying to say is 60 card formats make you actually play the game
Yeah.
in a way that Commander, you still get some of that in Commander, but not as directly. It's a lot of these plays are, while your deck has a focus and you're trying to like build towards something. And it's why I love Singleton. It's why I love Canadian Highlander.
Yeah.
You get a lot of variety from game to game to game. 60 card, you're playing with playsets of 4. Your game plan is pretty much it's go.
Yeah.
You start the game, it's go. I mean, there are some, like, again, mid-range decks where you've got some variety. I like that kind of toolboxy approach with some more mid-range decks. That's why I love lands in Legacy. There's a lot of different moving parts, a lot of different ways of winning the game. And we'll talk about all these different
We'll
decks
jump
later,
into it, but yeah.
Yeah, the bottom line is I think 60 card is the best way of learning Magic. I'm not necessarily saying it's the best way of playing Magic, because I do love Commander, but there's there's a goal
Yeah.
with 60 card. That in Commander you build a goofy deck, you do your goofy thing, and that's fun. 60 card and almost all these formats, your goal is to win.
Yeah.
It's competitive by its nature, right? You can build, I mean, if you want to, you can build a goofy standard deck, play it on Arena, have fun, you know. But if you're sitting down at your game store with your friends, especially at like a tournament, you're building decks to win.
Yeah.
Sit down, play a match, and ideally go 2-0 against your opponent, right?
Yeah.
Very different mindset than Commander, which is why I think ultimately, again, you just get better at this game because you're coming at it from the mindset of, hey, I'm playing to win here.
Yeah. It sounds to me like Commander is a board game and limited construction is an actual card game. In that, like, Commander, board game, casual, sit down, have beers with your friends. Limited construction is more 1v1, you know, wizard chess.
Yeah. Well, and I do want to point, limited and constructed are two completely different things.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought they were the same thing.
Well, so
there's like saying,
well, this is actually a good point. I'm kind of glad you brought this up.
Okay.
Limited, and we'll have a totally different episode on limited. Limited is like drafting. It's you're playing. There's like sealed where you open, you know, like for a pre-release you open 6 packs, you build a deck, or you draft with 3 packs, or you play a cube and you draft. Limited is like you have that deck for a limited amount of time because you sit down, you build a deck, you play with it. Okay. And that's that. That's what limited is. Constructed is where you take the cards from a limited environment, like let's say Innistrad Remastered. We could sit down and do Innistrad Remastered Limited, meaning we do a draft, we do, you know, a sealed event with Innistrad Remastered. Then after we've opened all our packs, we played with those cards, we could then build a constructed deck, meaning, you know, generally with each format, like standard, it's like, I think 13 different sets right now. You pull cards from all of those different sets to build the most optimal 60 card deck that you can for the amount of sets that are currently legal.
Okay.
So constructed is like your Commander decks are constructed. You've intentionally built a deck, picking these cards, buying these cards, and it's all intentional. Limited, there's the variability. And it's why limited is personally my favorite way to play Magic is drafting.
Which is funny because it's my least favorite way to play.
That's heartbreaking. That's truly heartbreaking. We have to draft more.
I'll be honest. Every time we draft, I always wish we were playing Commander or like Pauper but yeah, we'll get into that.
That's heartbreaking. Yeah, we'll do a limited episode for sure because Cube is the best. And just draft in general, like we'll do a limited episode. This episode is on constructed formats.
Yes, that's another episode for another day.
So yeah, let's just do a quick little overview of constructed while we're talking about constructed now versus limited.
Yeah, not limited, constructed, everybody.
Yeah, and we're specifically talking about, we'll focus in on the sanctioned constructed formats.
Okay.
Because they are the most popular. There are obviously Wizards runs tournaments for these formats for good reason. So we'll focus in on those, and then we'll talk a little bit about the more casual constructed formats at the end.
Okay.
Basically, like really quickly here, we'll be talking about the big 3 and the little 3 is kind of how I've split it up.
I like that.
The big 3 being standard, pioneer, and modern, which are inarguably the kind of most popular ways of playing 60 card constructed. And then we've got the little 3, which consists of vintage, legacy, and pauper.
Okay.
Is the little 3. So all 6 of these are sanctioned constructed formats, meaning Wizards runs tournaments through what used to be DCI. I think now it's like I forget what it is. The Wizards, it's like the Wizards Play Network, WPN, I think.
Oh, okay.
So Wizards like
on the Ocho, ESPN Ocho. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the En Español
Gotta watch Telemundo to catch that.
Telemundo for these formats. No, but basically these formats are defined by Wizards, and they run sanctioned tournaments, right?
Yeah.
From format to format, you're going to build a deck. I unlike Commander, where you can you can have fun and build your singleton deck in Commander. That doesn't really work for 60 card formats because you're playing with the intent to win. You want to play good decks.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the best tier 1 meta deck, but you want a deck that is like cohesive and has a strategy and can win games, right?
Yeah.
A lot of my decks are like tier 2, maybe a tier 3 here and there. Like I play Tin Fins in Legacy. I don't think that deck is even viable anymore, but I think it's cool.
It's viable in your heart, though.
It's viable in my heart. So I recommend checking out resources like mtgdecks.net. There's MTG Top 8. I know there are a lot of MTG Goldfish, post-tournament decks. There are a lot of resources for checking and seeing what the latest and greatest deck in each of these formats is.
Okay.
It's important to understand the meta of a format, whether that be the kind of overarching competitive meta at the time, your current communal meta,
okay,
like your LGS meta, your playgroup meta. It's all important because, namely, for your sideboard, what's going to go into your sideboard for matchups. We'll talk about that later a little bit. And then, again, the reason we're talking about this is I want to challenge Luke to get into 60 card.
Okay. 2025 resolution.
We're getting Luke into 60 card. I think we started maybe with, I think Legacy is good for a lot of people. And unfortunately, it wasn't a good match for you.
Yeah, I hate Legacy.
And I think in general, if you're just getting into 60 card, I would challenge you to try Legacy. But I think the best starting point is Standard because it's the most current sets typically.
Yeah.
Well, definitely it's the most
it has
recent
to be,
sets
by definition. Yeah.
And so it's the cards you're familiar with, right?
Okay.
If you're opening the packs or you're up to date with the new sets that are coming out and you've seen these cards, you're gonna have the highest, I think, familiarity going into 60 card constructed with Standard.
Okay.
And it kind of evolves from there, right? Like Standard, Pioneer we can get into. It's kind of controversial right now, I guess. Modern, and then Legacy, Vintage, Pauper. Pauper has a really low barrier of entry as well. I don't know if it's the best representation of 60 card constructed, but it is great. I do love Pauper, but I think it kind of, maybe it didn't have the same issue as Legacy for you, but there wasn't I think we played it once.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen for whatever reason. So this year is the year where we get into more 60 card. We're going to try to get you into more 60 cards specifically.
I'm here. I'm down. I'm down for it.
So how we're going to tackle this is for each format, the big six and the big three and the little three, 6 total. I will outline 3 popular decks, and this is as of January 2025.
Okay.
So again, metas change. These decks rotate in and out. So
in 3 years, you'll probably never hear of any of these. So
it's very true. So I will outline 3 popular decks for each format, and then Luke, you're going to pick one, and then I'll print it out, and we're going to play with them.
Oh, seriously? Okay.
Yeah, that's how this is going to work.
Only if you proxy them at the library.
Absolutely.
All right, deal.
Another excuse for me to walk over to the library.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I mentioned Legacy didn't quite work for you, but I guess what's a good starting point is what's your experience with 60 card?
So my experience with 60 card is really just one, is one type, and you said it before, and that's Pauper. So when I first moved to Austin, so I lived in Austin, Texas for a little bit. For a job, and I was trying to make friends, and one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, I play this game called Magic the Gathering. You want to come?" And he's actually who introduced me to to this game, and they just played Commander and Pauper. So I literally made a Pauper deck from bulk at Mothership in Austin, Texas, and went from there. So Pauper is the only 60 card format that I've actually seriously actually played.
And it sounds like it was kind of like kitchen table Pauper.
Yes,
Just,
complete kitchen table,
yeah.
like no sleeves, like you like these days. No sleeves. Just like I remember my first Pauper deck was no lie, like $8 in bulk.
Yeah.
All commons, and he just was like pick a color and then just like make every just pick cards from that color, like find 23 of them, and I was like, okay, cool. So, and of course I picked green because I looked at all the colors and I was like, I like all these guys better. So yeah, I had like a mono green Pauper deck that made no sense, but hey, I actually took some games, guys. I took some games. And so yeah, Pauper's really my only, which is kind of why I have a soft spot for it. It was my first actual way to play Magic was Pauper.
I think here it'll be interesting to have you maybe try to re-engage with Pauper at like a different level.
Yeah.
Rather than doing the, LGS bulk bin build, we do like
you got 10 minutes, go make a
curated Pauper list with the proper sideboard and the whole shebang.
Oh, I'm here for it. Yeah, and I think too, like one of the reasons why I liked Pauper so much, I mean, like there's really like 3 things I kind of look for in like a format. Number one, which is why I didn't like Legacy, was like I just want to be able to play multiple turns. I want to be able to play the game. Like I went to a tournament and honestly it was awful. Like with you guys in that like every game I literally didn't play. I got like held up for $15. I handed it to the guy and then I just sat at a table and I lost turn 1. Every game I played. Except for you because you were nice. When we played. But yeah, no, I want to be able to play multiple turns. I do kind of like some self-identity. Like I kind of like that people are like, oh, I always play this deck. Like I'm a, I'm a dead guy ale player. I kind of like that. I like that.
Yep.
I like where it's like, oh, this is the guy for the white weenie decks. Like go talk to him. I kind of like that like that self-identity.
Yeah, and I think maybe part of it was we just threw you into 8-cast, which is maybe it just wasn't the right deck for you because it's literally just let's run a bunch of Force of Wills and have Luke try to figure out how to play Force of Will right away. So we'll figure that out. This episode we're just going to focus on the big 3 as far as you picking out decks. We're just going to talk a little bit about Legacy, Vintage, and Pauper. Just have a quick conversation about that at the end. But I think we should just dive right into the big 3, Standard, Pioneer, and Modern.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, like I said, they're inarguably the kind of top 3 constructed formats outside of Commander. So they're going to be our main focal point here. Let's start with Standard. Gotta start with Standard. It is a rotating constructed format, first created in 1995 when they were first trying to figure out how to do like, I think, tournaments and like splitting into different formats and that type of thing. So it was known as Type 2, allowing cards from Revised and the latest 2 expansions, which were the Dark and Fallen Empires.
I like it.
Now, for context, at the time, that pool of cards was only 509 cards were legal in Standard or Type 2.
A whopping 509.
Currently, there are 3,270 cards currently legal in Standard.
Gotta love it.
There are 13 sets, with the most recent Standard legal set being Foundations. It goes all the way back to Dominaria United. And yeah, again, as far as deck construction, I think it's important to kind of do that right up top here. Much like all the other formats we're going to talk about, decks must consist of a minimum of 60 cards in the main board with a sideboard of up to 15 cards.
Okay, gotcha.
So this is different than Commander where you have to have 100 cards. There's no wiggle room. It's just 100 cards, and then maybe you have a companion or something.
Yeah.
But it is always 100 cards. In all other 60 cards constructed formats, 60 is the minimum. There are some decks that run like 63 or 64. Like there are like some like
spicy
synergies that like you add a couple more, or namely there's Yorion, the Sky Nomad, which I think Yorion's like you need 20 more to have it as a companion. So you run an 80 card deck. I don't know if you're familiar with Yorion.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, Yorion's popular because it's a companion, and its companion ability is your starting deck contains at least 20 cards more than your minimum deck size.
So does your deck have like 120 cards in it?
Nope, he's not a companion. He's just in the main board.
Oh, he's just in the main board. Okay.
So yeah, companion's kind of funky. It's basically like an ability where you can have it in the companion zone. It's like you have it as a companion.
Ooh, okay.
So it's just in your sideboard, and then if your deck meets the companion requirement, you can pay 3 mana, put it into your hand from your sideboard.
Okay.
That's how that works.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Yorion you can't have as a companion in Commander because your deck has to be 100 cards.
Yeah.
There's also a card called Battle of Wits. Are you familiar with Battle of Wits?
I'm not.
This feels like a very Luke card. And
Okay.
we're just gonna go over it real quick, and then I'm gonna show you. Well, I'll send you the link to this. But basically, Battle of Wits for 5 mana is an enchantment. Beginning of your upkeep, if you have 200 or more cards in your library, you win the game.
Okay.
And there is an actual deck that ran this and top decked it and won.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I'll send you this video. It's from an SGC Legacy.
How did you get
Tournament.
200 or more card? Oh, just because you had like
You just can. You can. So
because it's 60 minimum.
60 minimum. So you could do 500. I think the like asterisk there is you have to be able to physically shuffle your deck.
Oh my
So as long as you can
gosh.
like reasonably shuffle your deck on a playmat, you can have that many cards. So it's kind of ridiculous. I'll
That's
send you this
wild.
clip. We're not gonna play it, but basically this guy, he's playing in a match and he top decks Battle of Wits to like win the game. It's like the best clip I've ever seen. So we're gonna put
I
this.
would be so mad.
I'm gonna put this in the episode description for everyone to check out. 'Cause
Yeah, please do.
It's so funny. And I think the clip starts at like 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, sets are rotated every 3 years, and starting in 2027, set rotation will start at the exact beginning of the calendar year.
Okay.
Whereas previously it was like in the when the fall set released, which was fine. I don't think it was that confusing. But now in 2027, it's going to be right at the beginning of the year. Stuff rotates out.
Yep.
And I think that's for the best.
It's just like
ultimately.
way clearer too. There's no questions of like, hey, what's in, what's out.
The most recent standard set is Foundations, which is unique because it won't be rotated out of standard for 5 years
Yeah.
instead of 3, like all other standard legal sets, which I think it's great. Foundations is really solid, like quote unquote core set of
Yeah.
standard. And yeah, it's basically setting a foundation, quote
Yeah.
unquote, pun intended, sets the foundation for standard for the next 5 years. And I think that's fun.
Also, it definitely gives like design wiggle room. It's where it's like, okay, we haven't had a mana dork in blue for, that just rotated out, so we got to add it to the next set. It's like, well, no, it's in Foundation, so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to wait a creature slot on that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and speaking of mana dorks, we have Land of War Elves in standard for 5 years now. So
That's awesome.
you might be into that, Luke.
I am into that. I'm very much into that.
Yeah. And then, the last kind of notable thing about standard right now is, as we saw at MagicCon Vegas in the Foundations era presentation, Universes Beyond will now be legal in all formats, meaning standard and pioneer. So get ready for Spider-Man and Final Fantasy in your standard decks.
Yep.
And you're going to have to play them because they're going to be good cards.
Aunt May Tribal, baby.
Oh, good Lord.
Get ready for the Uncle Ben dying saga.
Oh, gosh.
Playable and standard.
So, yeah, what decks are good in standard right now? Unlike some more eternal formats like Legacy or Vintage, it's difficult to like kind of pinpoint or point to like a lasting strong archetype or deck, just because, like I said, the sets are rotated out every 3 years. So that's kind of what is actually the biggest draw to standard, is the decks change with every new set that comes out, and the sets that leave. Things are constantly changing, which is what makes it kind of fun and interesting. You're never going to play the same deck for like an extended period of time necessarily.
Yeah.
You might play like variations of like Dimir Control or like red deck wins. Like there are archetypes that are kind of tried and true and typically will do well, but those won't necessarily always be top tier decks.
Okay.
So that's kind of what's interesting and exciting, is that the competitive meta is always fluctuating in standard.
Yeah.
My current standard deck is Zur Domain Ramp.
Okay.
The whole bit of this deck, Luke, is Zur Eternal Schemer.
It looks awesome, by the way.
Looks so cool. And we're going to be talking about a ton of cards here, and I'm not going to go over every single one just for sake of time.
Fair enough.
So I'll just do like a quick brief description of what these cards kind of do and the vibe of the deck. So the Zur Domain deck obviously focuses on domain, meaning having one of every basic land type on the battlefield for a bunch of different reasons.
Okay.
Namely Leyline Binding. Basically just you get Swords to Plowshares in standard is kind of what that does. We've got Up the Beanstalk in this deck,
A classic.
which is great. It gets triggered off the Overlords from Duskmourn. That's kind of like the main game plan is you cast Zur, then you can Impending all these Overlords for like a lower mana cost, but still get triggers off of Up the Beanstalk.
Okay.
The main dude is Overlord of the Hauntwoods, because when he enters the battlefield or attacks, you get a tapped land token named Everywhere that is every basic land type.
Okay.
So you
nice.
just need one trigger from Overlord of Hauntwoods to hit 5 domain, which is just very strong, which is good for our, most importantly, our Leyline Bindings, but also we have Herd Migration, which for 7 mana, you get 5 3/3s, which
That's pretty good.
pretty good. But your main game plan is Zur. He gives all your Overlords Death Touch, Lifelink, and Hexproof. And you can impend them for a low mana cost. And then instead of waiting around for the 4 turns for those counters to come off, Zur has the activated ability of just turning a non-aura enchantment into a creature. So this,
there you go.
This deck is just so sick. It's just so fun.
It does look fun.
And I'm just really amped to play this with you. And Jacob, our other buddy, is also kind of into standard. He has a standard deck he just built. So yeah, kind of excited to actually play standard in paper and not just on arena.
Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
should be fun. But yeah, so Zur Domain is my deck. Now here are the 3 decks I've chosen for Luke
All right, let's hear
to
it.
pick from. Number 1, Red Deck Wins.
I've never heard of it. No, I'm just kidding.
So this one is just the classic, straightforward combination of burn and prowess to kill your opponent as fast as possible.
Love it.
I think
Tried and true.
the current rendition, if you can hit all your cards when you won't hit them, like if you start with a solid hand and you're drawing well,
Yeah.
you can kill your opponent in like 3 turns, typically.
I saw Monastery Swift Spear and I was in love.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll also point to standout cards for each of these decks. Number 1 is definitely Monastery Swift Spear, just a classic. 1/1 for is it a 1/1 or is it a 1/2? 1/2.
Yeah, it's a 1/2.
1/2 for 1 with haste and prowess. Doesn't get much better than that. But it also has Heartfire Hero, which is kind of the latest and greatest 1 mana red card, because it's got Valiant. Whenever you target it with a spell, you're basically going to play a bunch of pump spells to pump him up. He also gets +1/+1 counters on him. And then when he dies, he deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So you pump him up, and then your opponent doesn't want to kill him because he'll just deal that much damage to them. So kind of a fun little mouse dude.
I love that.
And then what you're targeting him with is typically going to be Monstrous Rage, which is this really awesome instant that it's just a cracked magic card. For 1 mana, you target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and it gets a monster roll token, which basically just means it gets +1/+1 and has trample. So you give your mouse a bunch of +1/+1 counters, buff him with the +2/+0, and give him +1/+1 and trample. Like, just a no-brainer.
Perfect.
Yeah, super
Also,
straightforward.
for the folks at home,
Red
not
Deck
a single sorcery.
Oh no, you're not playing at
Nope.
sorcery speed.
We're
in this
above
deck.
that in mono red.
It's
Baby.
literally just all mountains. You are playing the Rock Face Village, which you can actually trigger his Valiant because this targets a mouse.
I love that.
To give him +1/+0 and haste, which is pretty key.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, it's just a fun, clean, lean and mean red deck wins list.
I love it.
The second list is Golgari Midrange, which at the beginning of 2024, this was like my return to Arena for that little short period of time. I was playing this like mid-range list with Innkeeper's Talent, and it had like a one-hit combo with Vraska, and it played all like the cool like stuff like Mosswood Dread Knight and Glissa and Caustic Bronco. It just played all the coolest cards of all time in Magic, and that deck has evolved since then. It's still got the classic mid-range of like a little bit of control, some hand destruction, some removal.
Okay.
Grinding out value with cards like Mosswood Dread Knight and Glissa, which are just strong, cheap, and efficient creatures that just get the job done, win you games. But then it eventually kind of leads to like big, splashy plays off of Unholy Annex and Archfiend at the Dross, which are the main cards that I want to show you here, because they're kind of like the heart of this deck currently.
Okay.
So, again, just to point out some of the more kind of control pieces, you got your cut downs, which are just 1 mana destroy creature with power toughness 5. Total power toughness 5 or less.
Okay.
Go for the throats, destroy target non-artifact creatures. You got your hand destruction in duress.
Interesting.
Just very strong control piece. I don't think this deck currently main boards Liliana, but Liliana the Veil, the GOAT of all planeswalkers, literally just my favorite planeswalker of all time. But then the main bit of this deck and how you win towards like mid to late game is off of Unholy Annex. But basically what this does is at the beginning of your upkeep, it's kind of like a Phyrexian Arena. You get to draw a card, and if you control a demon, your opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you lose 2 life off of that draw.
Okay.
Which ultimately isn't going to matter that much. The other side, Ritual Chamber for 5 mana. When you unlock it, you create a 6/6 black demon token with flying.
That's pretty good.
So it self synergizes, right? Like if it creates the demon you need to meet, the condition of Unholy Annex, because it creates the demon, and then your opponent loses 2, you gain 2, and you draw a card. So really, really strong effect, and that also pairs really well with Archfiend of the Dross, which is kind of a nuts.
Looks
card.
awesome.
Pretty scary. But for 4 mana, you get a 6/6 with flying, and it enters with 4 oil counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove an oil counter from Archfiend of the Dross. Then, if it has no oil counters on it, you lose the game. Which sounds really scary.
That sounds a little spooky.
But it also says whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, its control loses 2 life. So the thing is, you're going to kill your opponent before you take even probably the second or third oil counter off of this thing. Because it's just a 6/6 flyer. Just swings out over the top, causes all their death triggers for them to lose life. And then with your Unholy Annex in play, because this is also a demon, it's just the synergy between Archfiend of the Dross and Unholy Annex is just nuts.
Okay.
So you're basically just killing your opponent with these big, scary demons while you're controlling their board with removal spells, basically.
Okay.
It's kind of the gist, the vibe.
Right. Okay.
It's the vibe of this Golgari midrange. And then the third deck is another midrange deck. It's Dimir midrange. And I think this is... It might be slightly better right now. I'm trying to remember. Hold on. Let me look this up before I get this wrong. I think this is the best deck.
Oh, okay.
In Standard right now. Yeah. So I put this on the list because this is the current best deck in Standard. And it's similar to Golgari midrange because you still run the similar removal pieces. It's very creature focused, which is something I think you'd appreciate. There's 21 creatures in this deck list.
That's what I like to see.
It's very, very creature focused in its approach. So you're basically like you're countering stuff, removing stuff, and then eventually taking them out of the game with stuff like Flood Pit's Drowner. You've got the Spyglass Sirens are gonna allow you
those
to
are gonna mess people up.
Yeah, and then Fairy Masterminds just draw you a bunch of cards. It's just very focused on creating as much value around every single like play you make. It notably features this new Kaito card, which I think is just it's like the new Minskin Boo as far as
That's what it looks like.
power level. It's like kind of on the same curve. Similar vibes. Basically, Kaito is like a creature planeswalker, which is just silly. You can ninjutsu in this planeswalker, which is yeah. I know you just said you don't like ninjutsu, but
Yeah, that's a no for me, dog.
he's kind of the bread and butter of this deck a little bit, but
I'm gonna ninjutsu my ass out of here. I'm done with this deck as soon as I saw ninjutsu.
Okay. So blue black mid range is off the table then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
No bueno.
It is cool.
I know it might be the best, but I don't have the IQ for ninjutsu,
Okay.
and I'm good.
I just felt like I had to include it because it is the best deck right now.
No, I get you. I get you.
So that means it's between Golgari mid range or red deck wins. What are you kind of vibing with right now?
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to go with the red deck wins.
All right.
I'm sure that it's not a surprise to you, but yeah, red deck wins. Also, like, not only is it like cheap, lots of interactions, it's got really cool creatures, and I don't want to. In a weird way, it's kind of an evergreen deck. Every time stuff cycles out and stuff cycles in, you just switch out the cards that aren't allowed to be played anymore, and they'll always be, an updated red deck wins.
Cool. Well, red deck wins.
Red deck wins.
And will be Luke's standard deck. So now, on to Pioneer.
I've never even heard of this.
A lot of people haven't as well for a lot of reasons. Basically, this Pioneer kind of came out at a bad time. I think it came out like just before COVID, and then it hasn't seen a lot of support since COVID. And I'm pretty sure they announced all like their RCQ events for 2025, and none of them have Pioneer. So yeah, things
they're
aren't
trying to kill it.
Things aren't looking great for Pioneer. However, they did just release Pioneer Masters on Arena, so take that with a grain of salt.
Fun.
I don't know.
Arena.
But yeah,
Arena
Pioneer
isn't even real to me. Like, we can't play it in person, so it doesn't even exist.
Yeah,
in my head.
that's kind of how I feel as well. So yeah, Pioneer is basically the next in line for sanctioned constructed formats, and it basically takes that like rotation cycle and removes that 3-year stop, and it goes all the way back to Return to Ravnica in 2012. So it's all cards from Return to Ravnica and forward.
Interesting.
Originally created in 2019 and debuted at Grand Prix Brussels in January of 2020. And that's kind of when they moved from Legacy to Pioneer in Star City Games tours. The all SCG events moved from Legacy to Pioneer. So this was kind of going to be the new, competitive format back in 2019. But then, like I said, all this other, COVID happened and they haven't really seen support since. And now we don't have RCQ events for it anymore. So Pioneer's kind of in this limbo, unfortunately, but I think it is still a really cool format because of the legal sets involved, right? 2012 forward with a unique ban list. I don't know. It's just interesting to see a kind of younger format. It's just unfortunate that we haven't had really any support for it since COVID happened. So we'll see. I think it's still really fun. The card pool, like I said, is really, really interesting and allows for, kind of all these funky, weird decks to kind of pop up that would not be really viable in Modern or Legacy. Talking like there's a 5-color Niv Mizzet deck. My deck is Mardu Greasefang, which is basically like Vehicle Reanimator.
I love that.
Which is nut. Like, why is that a deck that's actually kind of good right now?
I love it.
We got like Lotus Field Combo. All these decks are just like outclassed outright in like Modern and Legacy. So this is kind of like the little spot where things can get a little funky. You can get a little funky with it.
A little bit. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Pioneer definitely feels like the forgotten like middle child.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's got some fun stuff for it, but it's not as older or younger siblings kind of overshadow it.
Right. So yeah, my deck is, like I mentioned, Grease Fang, which is Mardu or red, white, and black. And its whole goal is to put stuff in the bin, not just stuff, but Parhelion the Second, a vehicle, and Sky
Interesting.
Sovereign,
Okay.
console flagship. You're basically reanimating vehicles with Grease Fang, Okiba Boss, which reads, at the beginning of combat on your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, and you return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step.
Okay.
So you're basically trying to get Grease Fang on the board, put stuff in your bin with stuff like Blood Tithe Harvester. You've also got the new Overlord of the Baelmerk, the Black Overlord, allows you to mill stuff. And then, yeah, you bring these vehicles back in, you crew them with Grease Fang, and create a bunch of angels and deal damage to your... It's just like a really goofy, weird deck.
Yeah. This is a middle child deck right here.
So I immediately fell in love with this because it's got Croxa in the list. He's my dual commander. I love him.
He's awesome.
It's also got Fear of Missing Out, which is a new funky card from Duskmorn that I like. And then
himself.
Grease Fang. I actually have a foil signed Grease Fang from Victor Adame Minguez.
That's awesome.
MagicCon Chicago. So that's just kind of been chilling in my collection because I think Grease Fang is cool. Didn't really know what to do with him until now.
And now you got a reason to play him.
I've got Pioneer Grease Fang. So here are the 3 decks for Pioneer for Luke to choose from. First one is called Selesnya Company.
Okay.
Its whole bit is just creatures. So literally all creatures and 4 collected company, which basically allow you to, because there's only collected company and creatures, it allows your collected company to just hit every time. This is kind of a goofy green card that allows you to look at the top 6 cards of your library and pick 2 creature cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from those 6 cards just straight onto the battlefield.
That's awesome.
And this list is basically just like kind of
3 drops.
It's kind of like Death and Taxes a little bit. You've got stuff like Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, Skyclave Apparition. You've got the Enduring Innocence, which basically every time anything hits the battlefield from your deck, you get to draw a card, which is very cool. Aven Interrupter, which is another kind of stacks piece, taxing your opponents for certain spells. Archon, each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. So even though it's like it's mono green in nature, but it has all these like white Death and Taxes pieces to like prevent your opponent from like playing the game.
That's
So
sweet.
it's a cool combination of like aggro because you're building this cool, big, wide board, but also like forcing, like kind of halting your opponent's, controlling your opponent's board as well.
That's really cool.
So that's Selesnya Company. We've also got 5-color Niv Mizzet.
A little Niv Mizzet action.
I think I picked this one because I think you talked about one of the Niv Mizzets in our year in review.
Yeah.
From Foundations. I don't believe he's in this
No, he's
list.
not in this one. No.
However, it is just like you're playing just a bunch of stuff. Like I don't know how else to describe this deck, but you're just playing all like the good 2-color spells, right? Like your Abrupt Decays, your Lightning Helixes. You've got a bunch of Omnaths in here.
Because why not?
Because why not? You're playing Deafening Clarion. Like you're just playing a bunch of like weird 2-colored stuff to proc your Niv Mizzets. So this is definitely a goofy one, but it's definitely solid.
I love it.
And then finally, for Pioneer, we've got Rakdos Demons.
Okay.
And this is
Straight to the point.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. You got the same Unholy Annex thing. Again, I put this one because it's the top tier. I think this is the best deck in Pioneer right now.
Okay.
And it's a very similar vibe to the kind of Golgari mid-range deck I showed you. Except this one has Fable of the Mirror Breaker because it's legal in this. And then, yeah, you're doing some Blood Tithe Harvester action, which is just super good. And then, yeah, Unholy Annex, Ritual Chamber is just
so good.
It's just so good. So nothing too crazy to note about this list. Otherwise, you've got your fatal pushes, your duresses, your thoughtseize. Again, controlling your opponent's actions, leading into explosive plays with Fable, Shieldred, and Unholy Annex.
Let's go. Yeah, these 1-drop like control black cards, you know?
Yep.
You're going to see them everywhere.
And of those 3, what are you thinking, Luke?
Okay, so it's kind of one of those things where like my body tells me my mind says no, but my body says yes. Where
Okay.
I know that I should probably play that creatures deck, but my heart wants to play the Niv Mizzet deck. Just
Let's
on
go.
Riz alone, so I'm gonna go with the Niv Mizzet deck.
I love it.
Yeah, it's got all the boys. It's got Omnath and it's got Valky. I've always wanted to play Valky. It's got Niv. All my favorite characters. Also, it's got Lightning Helix, which is, a Zabaz, Boros staple. So it's got a little something I'm used to. So yeah, definitely got to go with Niv Mizzet.
All right, I love that. That's the deck that I was hoping you'd pick actually for this. Because while I think Selesnya Company is, like you said, maybe more like up your alley. Like
I know I'll like that one.
This is like something a little bit different.
A little spicy, you know?
Spicy, testing the waters.
Yeah. Dip my toe into it.
I love it. All right. We'll rock out with that. I'm excited for you to give it a go.
Dude, I'm excited
against
too.
my vehicle reanimation deck.
Honestly, if this is what Pioneer is about, I'm here for it. Honestly, I might be a Pioneer player, guys.
Let's go. Just some funky fun decks.
Yeah.
Is what Pioneer is all about.
Exactly.
And then the last of the big 3 for sanctioned constructed formats is Modern.
I've heard of that one.
So it's similar to Pioneer in that it starts from a set in time and allows all cards released afterwards. From Modern, it is 8th edition forward. You can think of it as your, the Modern border when that came into play. Modern border forward, hence Modern. It has its own ban list. Again, sticks to that same 60 card minimum, 15 card sideboard with playsets of 4 cards. It was first introduced on Magic Online, actually, in May of 2011, and officially debuted at Pro Tour Philly in August of 2011. What's unique to Modern is we've seen these straight to Modern sets that weren't legal in Standard Pioneer. It's kind of like straight to Eternal, I guess you could call them, with Modern Horizons, Lord of the Rings, and Assassin's Creed. Universes Beyond moving forward is now going to be Standard legal. We will probably still see Modern Horizon sets. I just don't see how they would. I mean, it's one of the most popular sets whenever they drop.
Yeah.
They've got all the most powerful cards. Wait, what did you say?
I was just gonna say, like, like all sets, like the Modern Horizons stuff, like even like the Commander people really like Modern Horizons because there's always really good cards in it. Legacy likes it. Well, they don't really like it, but they deal with it.
Yeah, no one really likes Modern Horizons, let's be honest, but we all have to play with these cards.
It piques all of our interest. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and even if it doesn't, you're forced to play them, like your Vexing Baubles, your Nadus. They're too powerful to ignore.
No, exactly.
So yeah, I think Modern is really popular because you get to play with all these powerful cards without having to deal with like some of the nonsense you see in Legacy with stuff like Force of Will. And while decks are still expensive, kind of in this like $500 to $1,000 range on average, they're not Legacy expensive, which can be thousands of dollars. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
kind of minimum a little bit. My current Modern deck, with the recent unbannings of Faithless Looting and Mox Opal, is a Grinding Breach combo deck.
Okay.
And Luke, you would probably hate this deck. It's basically like a combo, kind of like pseudo Stormlist. I mean, it's just straight combo.
Yeah, I see Thassa's Oracle and I don't like it.
Yeah, Thassa's Oracle and Underworld Breach, probably the most, if not one of the most like complicated spells to resolve.
Yeah.
Like when it resolves, like doing the Underworld Breach thing. You're gonna play against this deck, and
I'll play against it.
I'm gonna demonstrate what this deck does.
Deal.
Basically, like I said, with Faithless Looting being unbanned and Mox Opal being unbanned, I think combo is just kind of nuts right now. And so it's Grinding Station and Underworld Breach are like the primary combo, and they're supported by stuff like Emery, Lurker of the Lock, and Tameo, the new Flipwalker. It's a creature
The
that
Flipwalker.
Yeah, it's a creature that
Yeah.
flips into a planeswalker. It's just again Modern Horizons 3. What the heck?
Modern gaming, everybody.
But yeah, you're basically just trying to put everything into your bin with Grinding Station. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, you untap Grinding Station. So you're basically casting all of these free, like your Mishra's Bauble, your Mox Amber, your Mox Opal, casting all those for free from your graveyard with Underworld Breach, continuing to mill your deck with Grinding Station, and then eventually you cast Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not a Luke deck, but that's why I'm
That's a
playing
no
it.
for me, dog. Yeah. I'll let you have that one.
So here are the three that I am pitching to Luke. We've got Boros Energy, which for a while was the top deck in the format. I don't think it is anymore.
Okay. I thought this was the top deck, so interesting.
It's still
It's
tier 1.
Okay, yeah.
But I think it was like the Raptor got banned. It had a couple pieces like get banned or something recently.
Okay.
And people have probably learned how to sideboard against it pretty heavily, or people are sideboarding against it pretty heavily. And yeah, with I'm really excited to see what decks come of the Faithless Looting and Mox Opal and bannings. I think we're going to see kind of this resurgence of combo potentially.
That's awesome.
But basically, Boros Energy, you're doing an energy shenanigans with Flage. You've got cards like your Guide of Souls is a cracked magic card, just a Soul Warden that has more stuff going on with it.
And it's 1-drop.
Get a bunch of energy. Ocelot Pride, my favorite card from 2024, just goes super wide with all the cat tokens. And then Ajani, another kind of new Flipwalker that does a bunch of crazy stuff.
The Flipwalker
with cats and is kind of a pain in the butt to deal with, from what I've heard. I've never actually played against this deck. And yeah, just plays obviously Galvanic Discharge, benefiting from all of the energy you've gained. And
a Blood Moon, I see.
yeah, Blood Moon's in this deck.
Everyone loves that card.
But yeah, it's just kind of like this, I don't know, it's kind of mid-rangey with this like energy package. I don't know. It's
a little bit of tribal in there.
Yeah, you get some kitty cats. It's a little cute little kitty cat deck. It's and then you can fling those cats with your Goblin Bombardment.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So that's Boros Energy. Then we've got the other popular combo deck in the format right now, which is Eldrazi Bloodchief combo. This, I was thinking of actually building this myself. It is so sick. Like this honestly to me is probably more my speed in terms of combo decks. But I think the Grinding Breach deck is more powerful. I think it's probably a better deck ultimately. But this is just like, this deck speaks to me.
Ooh,
the whole combo of this deck is between Blade of the Bloodchief and your Basking Brood-Scale. So Basking Brood-Scale reads, the important part of this card is it's an Eldrazi Lizard that reads, whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Basking Brood-Scale, you may create an 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token that has sack this creature, add 1 colorless.
Okay.
When you attach a Blade of the Bloodchief to it, what Blade of the Bloodchief does is, it's an equipment. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. And that's it.
Yeah,
it also has,
doesn't
if the equipped creature is a vampire, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on.
We don't care about that.
However, do you see how these two cards interact?
Yeah.
Basking Brood-Scale creates a creature that can sack itself, creating infinite colorless mana. Every time you sack one of these Eldrazi spawns, you get a trigger on your Blade of the Bloodchief, putting another +1/+1 counter on the Brood-Scale. When that +1/+1 counter is put on the Brood-Scale, you create another Eldrazi spawn, and the cycle continues. So you basically get infinite colorless creatures entering the battlefield that produce infinite colorless mana.
What could go wrong?
That matters because Glaring Freshraker, I don't know why this is in Japanese, but the important part of this card is whenever a colorless creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this is a win con. You also got your Walking Ballista. You just pump all your infinite mana into your Walking Ballista. And you've also got a Kozilek's Command. Pump all your infinite mana into Kozilek's Command. So 3 very just straightforward avenues of like winning once you've assembled Blade of the Blood Chief, and Basking Brute Scale combo.
Awesome.
Super sick. It's mean. It's clean, and
It's a fighting machine.
it's a fighting machine. And it's also running Mox Opal now that that's here.
Now that that's here.
Why not? Should probably do it.
When in Rome.
So I don't know. I think it's a really cool it's a good like kind of intro combo deck as well. It's fairly easy to interpret and understand it's literally a 2-piece combo with a bunch of easily interpreted win cons.
Yep.
So it's a good intro to combo, basically is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
The final deck is Hammer Time.
I love
This
it.
deck is literally called Hammer Time. Game
Yes.
plan. Colossus Hammer.
Okay.
Standout card. Colossus freaking Hammer.
Yeah, boy.
How is there a deck that's just focused on Colossus Hammer? I don't know. But apparently this is like a tier 3. Like people are playing this deck and winning with it.
I love that.
So for those who don't know, Colossus Hammer is a 1-mana equipment. It has equip 8. But equip creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying.
How many flyers are on this deck? 0? Okay, cool. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's not the part. The 10/10/10 for free is what matters because you're running Stoneforge Mystic is what tutors your Colossus Hammer, gets it on the battlefield, and then your Pure Steel Paladin gives your equipment equip 0.
That's awesome.
So you're basically just putting the big hammer on your Ginger Brute, which is why this is
I
just
love
so
that.
funny. Or even like your Ornithopter, like it loses flying, but
it's free.
it's like a 10-12 creature, like. But namely Ginger Brute, it has haste, and it also has for 1 mana it can't be blocked this turn, basically.
Yep.
So you just put your hammer on the Ginger Brute.
Swing out, baby.
So good, so funny. It's just like such a goofy deck. That it's just running. The new Leyline Axe is super cool. One of my favorite cards from Foundations. It's literally a Leyline equipment. Like it's
So cool.
super sick. Gives your
And I
equipped
pulled
creature +1/+1, double strike, trample. You've got your classic Shadow Spear. You've got your classic Cauldron Complete. Some Lava Spur boots. So there's like some other equipment in this deck as well. Yeah, it's just equipment Ginger Brute. The deck.
I love that.
Super sick.
I love that.
So which of those 3 decks speaks to you, Luke?
Okay. So my original thought was Boros Energy because I love Boros. I love energy.
Okay.
I like that I want to play Flage. He's the new boy in us Boros people's lives, you know? But I'm actually going to do something that you wouldn't expect. I'm going to do Eldrazi Blood Chief. I want to see what combo's all about. I want to see. I hear you talk about it all the time. You said this is baby's first combo. I'm in.
Yeah, I'm really glad you picked this. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think you'd probably really hate the energy deck. It is really, yes, it has Flage, but it also has energy, Luke. You have to keep track of your energy. You got rid of your energy precon.
I did. I hated that deck.
You hated energy. And also, Ajani is like, he's strong, but he's like kind of complicated.
Also from a distance,
you've
his
got
brother looks
Ocelot Pride,
naked.
also kind of like this is like a pretty. This deck does not feel very Boros. The Boros that you love
No.
is not really exemplified here.
There's no Zabaz energy in this deck. So I'm going to have to go with Eldrazi Blood Chief.
Oh, I love that. I'm very excited because, like I said, this is my. If I had to pick a favorite, it's probably Eldrazi Blood Chief combo.
I'm here for it.
But I had to go with the other one because.
Honestly, Hammer Time looks fun, but I feel like I get bored with it.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know what I mean?
I think so too. It's just an equipment deck. Like, I love my Astor commander equipment deck, but I don't think I like equipment in constructed formats.
Yeah.
Like, I get like Stoneforge Mystic is a sweet Magic card for sure.
Yep.
But I don't know. Yeah.
No, I get you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you do the Colossus Hammer on your Ginger Brute one time, and you're like, "Yep, been here, done this."
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what
Whereas
I'm thinking too.
Eldrazi Blood Chief, you've got the multiple win cons, trying to like. There's the exciting thing about combos. Once you assemble it, that's like the moment where it's like, "Oh, is this going to resolve? Or are they going to counter this?" It's like, what's going to happen?
I've never felt that in my life.
Oh, that's addicting. It's like such an addicting feeling.
Okay.
So
The replayability. an Eldrazi Bloodchief. You know, I'm down.
Probably a little bit higher than the other decks for sure. Although once you get the hang of Boros Energy, there's a reason why it's like, one of the best decks in the format. But yeah, I think you'll have a lot more fun with the Eldrazi Bloodchief combo deck for sure.
Oh, I'm excited.
So yeah, that covers the big three. So let's quickly go over the little three.
Okay.
We're not going to do a deck for every single one of these formats.
I just want to hear about them.
Just because you've also had, I think, have more experience with, like, you've played Legacy, you've played Pauper, like you said. And then Vintage, while it's worth talking about, I don't know if it's for us. It's certainly not for me, but there's maybe a larger conversation to have about Vintage later down the line. But yeah, we'll jump right into it with Vintage. So Vintage is also originally known as Type 1 or Classic. It is the OG constructed format, which makes sense because
it makes sense.
So it allows for all cards from all Magic the Gathering sets, all including the Power 9. It literally is just the broadest spectrum of playable cards is represented in Vintage.
Okay.
And even though you can play the Power 9, you can't play full play set of each, which means they are restricted.
Okay.
There are some formats that have restricted lists where it's either a points list like Canadian Highlander, cards are pointed, or restricted to just one copy per deck because of the power level of those cards is more or less why they do it.
So can you only have one of the Power 9 in your deck?
Yes, which, I mean, it's still 9 of the most powerful broken cards in Magic the Gathering. And that's kind of why I'm a little bit turned off by it, because you end up with these decks that are just Power 9 good stuff piles and just restricted. Because there's about 50 cards that are restricted, including even beyond the Power 9. We've got Flash, Demonic Tutor, Time Vault.
Okay.
We've got some newer stuff like...
Can I play Tinker?
You can play Tinker. So maybe this is for you.
Maybe I'm a Vintage player all along.
That would baffle me if you were. If you were just like, yeah, I'll pull up with all these like crazy broken cards. I mean, maybe that is your speed. Who knows?
Probably not.
Basically, this is Legacy on drugs.
No, I don't want that.
Because
I'm okay.
It's Legacy on drugs, and you just get to play with. I mean, the cool thing is you get to cast Power 9, right? Which in theory sounds sweet. Like, oh, I get to Time Walk. This is awesome. I get to Ancestral Recall. I get to play Black Lotus. This is all awesome.
I've seen those on the internet.
However, you end up with like a lot of. And granted, I personally have not played Vintage. This is all just my outside opinion, just from what I've seen on deck lists online and like some. I've watched a little bit of Vintage play, just on YouTube or whatever. So I personally haven't played Vintage, but to me, Vintage feels, because it's like a semi-singleton, because you get this restricted list, and like if you're playing Vintage and you're not playing the Power 9, like what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you end up with these like weird Power 9 good stuff piles. Granted, there's some variety in deck archetypes. Like there are, mono white weenie decks or like Oath of Druid decks. I'm sure there's Underworld Breach decks. I know the more popular decks are like Paradoxical Outcome and Esper Luris. And you look at the meta and it's just like, yeah, we're going to play these decks because you get to play.
Because you can.
You get to play the Power 9, and these decks are like you can most optimally play with the Power 9 with these cards. So, I don't know. And it's also just extremely expensive. Granted, if you're playing Vintage, you're probably proxying anyways. But decks are going to be like $10,000, $20,000 in paper.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. We don't need to do that.
But I think my general feel on like the Vintage constructed is I'd much rather just play Vintage Cube. Like I can cast my Moxen, I can cast Black Lotus, but I don't feel like pushed in a direction. Like there isn't.
Yeah.
I guess my point here is like it doesn't feel like there's a bunch of variety in Vintage. Like you're gonna see the same games. Everyone's playing the Power 9.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just kind of my general impression. Maybe I'll be proven wrong down the line when I actually give it a shot. But right now I'm not super into Vintage.
Yeah. No, I get you.
The next one is Legacy, which was initially coined Type 1.5 as an offshoot of Vintage.
Okay.
Except there were no restricted cards. So which is true today, right?
Yeah.
There's no Power 9. They're banned in Legacy. So it's like a more reasonable way of playing with every set in Magic's history, right?
Yeah.
To me, when Legacy is healthy, it's the best 60 card format hands down.
Okay.
And that's because you get to play with all of the powerful magic. You get to cast your Force of Wills. You get your Swords to Plowshares. You get all the good things, right? Get your Gristlebrands. Get your Entombs going.
You play Tinker.
No, maybe not that.
Oh, you can't? Okay.
But it basically, like, that's kind of to my point. Like, you can't play with Tinker because that's too much.
It's too cool.
It's too much. You can't play with the Power 9. Those are too much. So it's like, it's a way of like toning Vintage down in a way that I think is just more fun and allows for like a broader variety of decks.
Okay.
And some of my personal favorite decks are Tin Fins, Lands, Original Reanimator, which is like Rakdos Reanimator, Painter, and the Epic Storm, which is like a combo storm deck. So there's like a lot of variety there, and there's a lot of stuff that has resonated with me personally in Legacy. So I think maybe we'll revisit that with you down the line, because I know you didn't quite click with 8-cast and the play patterns.
I just don't think I didn't click with the game in that, like, I didn't get to play it. I lost turn one, literally 4 games in a row.
And that's where,
And then I'd like force a will something, and then the person would just like snicker. They'd be like, huh, you force a willed the wrong thing. And then like they just beat me. I was like, all right, well.
Yeah, and that's where, like, going back to our conversation earlier about like about Counterspell, OG Counterspell, is you learn when to play your counterspells, like when to force a will stuff.
Yeah.
Because in Commander, you can willy-nilly outcast Force of Will on that just because it's not optimal for me right now. And that's like a fine play.
Yeah.
In 60 card, countering the wrong thing can just mean you lose the game. So that's why, like, maybe 8-cast wasn't the right starting point. Maybe we'll find a different Legacy deck for you to give a shot. But right now we're focused on Standard, Pioneer, and Modern, I think, are like your segue into 60 card.
Works for me.
And then finally, we'll talk about Pauper as like the final sanctioned constructed format. Think Legacy, except only commons.
I love it.
It's kind of more or less kind of the equation, right?
You sold me.
Obviously, it's incredibly cheap. A lot of decks only cost $50, $100. Really, really low barrier of entry here. And then, a lot of the play patterns are, because they're at common, fairly straightforward. You can get there are combo decks. There are storm decks. You can get pretty complicated with what you can accomplish with common cards.
Yeah.
My personal favorite is Goblin Combo, aka Mogwarts. There's another really popular deck called Turbo Fog that's pretty complex and also deals with Storm. Obviously, you got your red deck Winds. That's still present in Pauper.
Yeah, it is.
Affinity is really hot right now. So it is a pretty complex format, even though you're only playing with common cards. So it's definitely worth trying. I personally love it. Like I said, Mogwarts, my favorite decks ever, is all commons. So
yep. Yeah, my Pauper deck is mono blue Tolarian Terror.
Mm-hmm.
So I just I'm throwing spells in the bin, a lot of like brainstorms and stuff, and then playing him for like 1 mana. So it's great.
Yeah. It'd be fun for us to both find new Pauper decks too.
I would love that.
Just to do something a little bit different, because
I'm going to proxy it.
I'm very set in my ways with my Mogwarts deck, so it'd be fun to test something a little bit different.
I love it. I'm down.
So that covers the 6 primary Wizards-sanctioned constructed formats, comprised of the big 3, which are Standard, Pioneer, and Modern, and the little 3, which are Vintage, Legacy, and Pauper. However, there are plenty of other constructed formats, more casual or community-focused, community-run formats
Yeah.
that are really fun, such as Pre-modern.
Pre-modern.
It's great. It's an old school format without, again, the original core set and weird things like Arabian Nights, The Dark, Legends, Fallen Empires. It's 4th edition Discourage. That's it. So it allows for like super kind of funky
Yeah.
stuff that you like literally don't see anywhere else. I've printed off, Luke mentioned Slivers and Stifle Knot, which is probably the best deck in the format right now. Super funky mono blue deck. I also printed off Storm. We've got Oath of Druids, Elves, my personal favorite Dead Guy Ale, which is just like Hypnotic Spectre control. Like, come on. It doesn't get much cooler than that. So yeah, it's just a fun, like, I love these kind of funky community run formats that are like still stay true to like the ideology of building and like curating a proper 60 card format, because it just feels, again, that the word of reinvigorates your interest in the game of Magic ultimately.
Yeah. Pre-modern, honestly, after playing with you guys the other night, feels like how Magic was kind of designed to be played, you know?
Exactly. I think that's probably one of their primary goals. So
Well,
mission accomplished, I
Yeah,
guess.
they nailed it.
But yeah, and then beyond constructed, like Luke mentioned, there are also limited formats. And we're going to do a whole separate episode about limited and draft. And
why it sucks. No, I'm just kidding.
That'll be the episode where I convince Luke draft is the best way to playing Magic the Gathering.
It's technically the way you're kind of supposed to play it. So.
But yeah, I think that's a kind of a good way to wrap this episode.
Yeah.
Is just get out there, try these formats. All of the lists for all of these decks that I've talked about for Standard, Pioneer, Modern, the list I'm playing, the lists that Luke is going to start playing, those will all be in the episode description. And yeah, the Commander isn't the only format, guys. Turns out there's
others exist.
There's
Guys.
a ton of really, really fun formats out there. So I hope this episode kind of helped introduce you or you know, re-inspire you to get back into 60 card.
Yes.
While we love Commander, 60 card is also where it's at.
I love it. Yep.
All right. Well, let's close out the episode with our classic Scryfall Random Spirit Creature of the Week.
Oh gosh. Okay. I got one.
Hit me with it.
So I got Glissa Sunslayer. Legendary creature, Phyrexian zombie elf. Which for
Okay. Maybe you need to play Golgari mid-range. Because this is in the Golgari mid-range deck.
No way. Oh gosh. Okay.
You'll still play red deck wins, but this is one of my favorite cards that I got to play in Standard last year.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
continue. I'll let you finish, but that's just so funny that you literally randomed into one of my favorite cards in Standard of all time.
Oh, let's go. But yeah, no, it's for a black, a green, and a white, and one. Sorry, not white, but one. It says it's got first strike and death touch, and it says when Glissa Sunslayer deals combat damage to a player, choose one. Either draw a card and you lose one life, destroy target enchantment, or remove up to 3 counters from a target permanent. Seems pretty good to me.
It's super good. It's just, versatility with the modality, and first strike death touch is just, what are we doing here?
Yeah, what are we doing here?
It's so messed up.
Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
For 3.
So that's a big part of why I loved playing that deck. So that's awesome.
Well, let's go. Yeah, what'd you get?
So I also got a card new to Standard, Bloodthirsty Conqueror from
The boy
Foundations.
himself.
It is a 5/5 Vampire Knight for 3 a black and a black with flying, death touch, and whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Its flavor text reads, "This town swims with such exquisite blood. I will take every drop for my own." So kind of nice that it calls back to exquisite blood, and it has the exquisite blood effect stapled to it.
Yep.
Yeah, this card is messed up.
It really is. And there's a reason why it's like $100. Well, I don't know how much it is. Actually.
Yeah, no, it's like 30
Okay,
bucks
30.
right now, which is a lot.
Wow.
Well, those are two. I think we're gonna keep those. Those are pretty solid.
Those are pretty good. No complaints here.
All right. I think Luke actually has this week's food for thought cast question.
All right, everybody. What is your favorite colorless creature?
It's a pretty good one. There's a lot of really good.
There's a lot of good ones.
actually.
There's a lot of good ones. Yeah. So
Could be an artifact. Could be an Eldrazi.
yep.
Could be neither of those things.
Could be a changeling. Aren't those sometimes?
Yeah,
colorless?
yeah. Or like I think there's the fox, the far finder or whatever. Yeah, there's a ton of options here.
It's a lot of good ones. A lot of good ones.
Let us know your answers in the comment section below. Thanks to our sponsors. We currently have none. If you'd like to sponsor the show, please reach out to us via email at wilddogspodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to connect with us through Twitter or Instagram at wilddogspod, or over on Discord, which you're invited to in the episode description. Finally, as always, thanks to Johnny Bartlett for creating the intro and outro music. Until next time, Wild Dogs out.
Thanks, everyone.
Magic the Gathering. Gathering magic with my friends. Playing cool cards all the time. Tutoring